What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Kilo Loco, and today we're going to be working with Flutter. So we're coming in at day 19 of hashtag 30 days of Flutter, and what we're going to be doing today is we're going to take our to-do app and bring it up to that next level. And what I mean by that is, in the last video we built out the UI of the to-do app. We were able to save data locally, but we also saw that when we save data locally and we delete the app, all of our data is gone. It's gone. Like, your to-dos, poof, they're gone. So what we're going to do in this tutorial is I'm going to show you how to set up a cloud backend using AWS Amplify so that we actually have our data persisted to the cloud. So even if we do decide to delete our app, then we can still have our data saved somewhere. In this case, it's actually going to be DynamoDB. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump all right in. All right, so as you can see, we have our app. We're just back over here on the main.dart page, and we did like all of our configuration and stuff like that. Now, there was a line of code in here that I actually deleted. We're gonna come back to that, but first I wanna show you how to get started. Now, we're going to look at our sandbox.amplifyapp.com app. Now, this is what we were working with in the last video. If you're not there, then feel free to catch back up or check the link in the description. You'll be able to find a copy of this schema. But once we get to this point, we already went through the whole entire test locally. We did all that stuff. We went through all 5 of the steps. We're good. Now what we actually want to do is we want to deploy our app. Now this part, it does require that you have an AWS account. So if you already have one, then you just simply log in. Simple. That's what I'm about to do. If you don't have an AWS account, it's free, and you can actually get signed up with the free tier. You get it for 12 months, you get to try all this stuff out. Don't have to worry about pricing when you're just testing some of this stuff out. It's all pretty free, but you do have to actually create an AWS account. So go through that process. It's relatively easy, and it should direct you back over here. But if it doesn't, what I would recommend is you would actually do command and click on this so that it actually opens up in another window like this. Now it should bring you back here. It's telling you like, oh, we're expecting you to come back here. But just in case, you go through this entire process and then you you sign up. So yeah. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and log into AWS. And once we log into AWS, it's going to ask us to specify the app name. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call it my simple Flutter to-do app. Like so, call it whatever you want. I don't really care. And I'll just go ahead and put this in the US West 2 is fine with me. Choose whatever you want. Wherever you're located is fine. And then confirm that deployment, and bam. So what this is going to do is, as you can see, it says it's setting up admin UI. Admin UI is like the full-fledged feature of the Sandbox app. So it kind of takes this thing over here, what we were working with, our whole data modeling schema GUI thing over here, and it takes it to the next level, and it allows you to like do even more with it. So we're going to end up with like a dashboard like this that you can see down here. But this process does take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to create, because what it's doing is it's not only creating an Amplify app for you in AWS, but it's also spinning up instance of DynamoDB so that you can actually have a table that persists your data, your to-do data, and all that stuff, so that it can stay on the cloud. Now I'll show you a little bit of like how you can see the data that's persisted to the cloud and what's not, and like also go back over the data schema. But just know that this process is going to take a little bit of time, about 5 to 10 minutes, and then after it's completely done, you'll actually be able to get going. All right, so now we're back over here, and as you can see, we have everything all updated. Now, if your screen doesn't look exactly like this, then that means that you probably have a couple of things still going on in the background. It's still launching a couple of things. You can move forward, but just be wary. Anyways, open up that admin UI. It's going to open up, and we're going to see our dashboard, kind of like I was explaining before. So you see the same dashboard, like these are some of the logs that you were seeing before in the previous screen. And then what you can do is you can take a look at the data. So this is the data schema, or the schema model, or whatever you want to call it. And it's exactly what we had before when we were working in our last video on the to-do app. So same exact model, everything is the same, requirements and everything like that. So what we need to do now is we need to swap out what we're using on our app locally with the newly updated instance of our object or of our project, right? Because our Amplify project is not actually tied to our app right now because we were just using the sandbox version. So all we need to do is just, at this point, you should have Amplify CLI installed. That's what we covered in the last video, but all we need to do is just simply run this command, and that will essentially replace our sandbox with this deployed version of our app. So now, let's go back over to the terminal. We drop it in like bam. We hit enter, and then it's just going to make a couple of adjustments. So as you can see, what it's going to do is it's going to open up your browser, or it's going to request permission to open your browser, and you're going to want to log into Amplify CLI. You should already be logged in at this point because you just like literally deployed. You go back over to the terminal in your VS Code or wherever you decided to run that command. You go ahead and hit enter on whatever your preferred editor is. We're in Visual Studio Code. We'll keep going. Flutter, obviously. Where do you want to keep your configuration file? I want it in the same exact place as it was before, which is the default. You just hit enter. If you hit enter on all of these, it's just it just gives you the default arguments, and that's pretty much all you need. So enter again, and bam, you're pretty much done. You hit enter 4 times, and you're pretty much done. All right, so now we have our actual, we are going to actually be connected to our real Amplify app. So we're not just working with the sandbox anymore. We're working with our configured Amplify app in AWS, and you can actually take a look at my Amplify configuration. This is now all updated with all kinds of different data that's relevant to my specific app. So that means that we're ready to go, but we do have to update our dependencies. So one of the dependencies that we need to add in here is Amplify API. All right, so we have Amplify API added in here. Now, Amplify API works with DataStore, right? So DataStore is the part that kind of allows you to persist data locally, right? And then the API piece is the part that allows DataStore to communicate with the services called AWS AppSync under the hood. You don't really need to know this, but it allows it to communicate with AWS and be able to understand, hey, you know, Kilo created a new to-do, and I saw that there was a change in your database. Well, let me send that change up to AWS so that it's, you know, updated everywhere, and everywhere is aware of like the changes that you've made. So any changes that you make locally, which everything's still persisted to your local database, anytime you update that local database, those changes are synced with AWS and keeps all your data up to date. So that's kind of how it works, just like a little sneak peek and a little bit of an explanation on what's going on. Now back over here in our main.dart, we're going to go to that configure amplify area. Now I removed that line before, but what I actually want to do is I want to add the new plugin, which is the add plugin, and we're going to do the, I think it's API plugin. All right, and there we go. So now we have added in our new Amplify API plugin. Now, this should be fine. Adding in these plugins is actually extremely quick, but I do want to point out the fact that they are asynchronous functions. So since they are asynchronous functions, and there could be a possibility that stuff doesn't just go off without a hitch, you know, like, you know, you're a developer, you got to be prepared for anything, right? What we want to do is we want to make sure that we're adding these plugins, or we're awaiting for both of these plugins to finish. So that means that we would actually want to move them down into our try block, right? We want to move them down into our try block. And then what we also want to do is we want to do a future wait to make sure that we add both of those plugins before we try to do the configure. So let's add that change now. All right, and there we go. So now we're adding our plugins, and since they are futures or asynchronous functions, we're going to wrap them in that wait. That allows us to add them simultaneously. We shouldn't have any problems there. And then we're going to wait until that's done, and then we'll try to configure. Then we'll finally say that Amplify has actually been configured. Real good stuff. So with those changes, like all we really did here was we just added this additional plugin, and we added this dependency right here. That's it. We're done. It's actually that easy. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop that app. And I am actually going to be on the lookout for these errors, and we're going to actually move this back into our our try function, right? So as long as we're able to configure successfully, that's when we're going to configure Amplify, or that's when we're going to set configure Amplify to true. And then after we see all this working, then we're going to go back and handle the errors. So let's go ahead and run it. All right, and here we go. So our app is opening up. We're waiting for everything to configure, and bam, we get everything configured. So it looks like we're good. Now, since we have our to-do right here, we can see that everything is working and we were able to configure everything properly. But I do want to point out one little thing that you need to be aware of when you're working with the sandbox method, which is what we used in the last video to get up and running, right? So what we want to do is we want to take a look at our backend. We'll go under Amplify backend and then choose API. And we are going to be looking at the schema right here under the API right here. So I want to point out the fact that we have this @auth. This is called a directive. And we are saying that we're requiring auth in order for these models to actually be synced to the backend. So that means that this actually, whenever we create a new to-do, we won't be able to create it unless we are actually authorized users of the app. So we could either delete this, which would be fine, but instead what we're going to do is we're going to accommodate this, because in our next video we're actually going to go into logging in, because right now our to-dos are about to be for everybody. I'll go over that a little bit more. But essentially what we want to do is we're going to keep this in here. You could remove it if you don't plan on taking that next step and making to-do specific to that user. But it makes sense if you're going to actually try to release this thing on the App Store or something like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to update the categories that we're working with. So now what we want to do is we're going to go back over to our terminal, and we're still at the root of our directory. And you can do that by, and what we want to do is we want to enter in Amplify add auth. So this is going to add the auth category to our project, which is going to allow us to be able to work with these auth related to-dos. Now, we're not going to actually sign, the user in this video, but we will do that in the next video. But we're just going to get this up and running first, and then we're going to go back and modify our backend in regards to auth and all that stuff. So for right now, just go ahead and choose the default configuration, choose username, just keep hitting enter, and we're going to be fine. We just want to add the basics of auth to our project, and then we're going to run amplify push, because what we just did is we added the auth category to our local project, but we need to push that change up to AWS so that it's aware of these changes. So as you can see, when I do amplify push, it's going to give us a quick update or a quick status report of where we're currently at. We currently have API on our project, and that's because we did that second amplify pull method that we did over here and right here, right? When we did this, that means that we were already working with API, we're already having that category configured and everything. But now we just added auth locally from the CLI and we're creating it. Do we want to continue? Just hit enter for yes. And then we're going to wait like another 5 minutes for this to actually update our back end and let it know, hey, we now have a new auth category that we need to support, spin up and use all the different resources that are required in order to get that up and running. All right, so as we can see, all resources updated in the cloud. That means that we were able to successfully push the auth category up to our app. So now what we also want to do is we want to add in Amplify Auth as well. All right, so we have Amplify Auth right here. So now we have this other plugin. Like I said, if you were just to go ahead and delete that that auth from your schema, back where we were in the schema.graphql, if you were to simply just delete that and then push those changes up to Amplify, this would be all good. But we want to actually be able to support the fact that we're going to be using API or auth in the next video. So that's why we're going to continue through this path right here. Okay, so back over in our main.dart, what we need to do now is we need to also add in that auth category. Oh, and it looks like the auth category actually failed, and that's because I didn't do it right. So let's go back over to pubspec.yaml. I think it's auth, and then we want to specify cognito like that. So let's try that. So it's auth cognito, I believe, not just auth. All right, yeah, it looks like it worked. So make sure it's auth cognito. I always get that confused. That's my B. All right, so now over here in our future.wait, we're going to add in another plugin. Let's just do it right here. And there we go. We just simply do amplify.add plugin, and then we pass in the Amplify Auth Cognito plugin like so. So really cool stuff right there. Then we can actually run our app. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll stop it, then we'll run it. All right, and here we go. Let's see it. Let's see it happen. All right, so it looks like we were able to add in all of our plugins. Now, this to-do may or may not be synced with our backend. I actually don't know. Let's find out together. But it was created with the old system, and it was, or the old app, and it was created before we added our two different plugins. So honestly, I don't really expect it to be there. But if we go over to content, we can check to see if it actually got persisted. And there it is. So as you can see, it actually did get persisted. So that's one of the cool things about Amplify, is that it will like manage whether you could pretend like the app was offline this entire time. And then when it detected this new change in the database that was not synced, it was able to do that sync. So what's really cool is now we have this new to-do, save to-do in the backend, or save to-do to the backend, right? And we save this to-do, we see it pop up here, and then if we go to restart or refresh this page, we should actually see that we have that one saved there as well. So save to-do to the backend, and that's pretty cool if you ask me. It's pretty cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna move this off to the left. Slide to the left. All right, now there is one thing that I want to show you, which is a flaw in our current app, because we were only working with local data before, but now we're actually expecting to, be able to change the state from whether it be, the web console or, from a different device. And we want to keep all that up to date. Now, right now, whenever we like create or update or something like that, we're just going to get the to-dos, right? But that means that we're only getting the to-dos when it's triggered on that specific device. So that means if I go over here and I select this one and I want to actually update it to be, done, right? So it should update this one to be done, right? So if I save it, take a look at that. So it got updated right here, but it didn't get updated right here. So that's kind of a problem for us. And if I actually stop it and then I run it again, we're going to see that it does get the to-dos, right? Because it's going to do the get to-dos as soon as the app opens up, or as soon as the screen is starting to load, right? And it's going to get the latest data, and we will see that that check mark is there. But the problem is that we're not watching for those changes locally. So whenever our app is updated, or whenever we're notified of a change, we're not actually updating that, and we need to change that. So let's take a look at the app as it gets brought up right here. And as we can see, we are getting the data that was updated from our backend, but it's not happening right when we do it, right? So that's what we want to change. So now what we need to do is we need to go over to our to-do qubit. And what we can do is down here in the to-do qubit is we can add another function that will actually observe the to-dos. So let's go ahead and add that in now. So the observe to-do is going to be something that we're going to also need to call at the beginning of whenever we create this qubit, right? So right now, if we take a look at it, we're only doing get to dos, but we also want to cascade and we want to observe to dos, right? Ooh, look at that cascade. Oh yes. So now that means we need to also update our to-do repository, because the repository is going to be the thing that actually is going to be working with Amplify. We're not working with Amplify, like we're not importing Amplify anywhere but here. So let's also add in an observe to-dos stream. And there we have it. It's as simple as this. We're just going to be returning a stream, which we're going to be able to listen to events, and what we'll be able to do is call observe to dos from our qubit. Well, let's make sure that bad boy is saved. We want to save it, right? And we're getting all kinds of errors over here because we're modifying stuff. But anyways, what we want to do is we want to get our stream, and then we want to listen to it, and then call get to dos anytime there's a change in our stream. And it's as simple as that. So as you can see, what we're doing is we have our to-dos stream, which we're grabbing from our to-do repo. Then we're going to simply listen to that stream inside of our to-dos qubit. From there, we'll be able to call the get to-dos whenever an event happens. So this is actually going to happen whenever we save locally or save, outside of this device. So what we can do now is we can update our other functions where we're simply creating a to-do, right? We don't need to actually get the to-dos anymore, because every time we create one, it's actually going to be observing that. And the same thing with updating. We don't need to actually do anything, or we don't need to call get to-dos, because it's automatically going to be done right here. So if I save this, and if we go ahead and F5 it out and actually start running the app, we should notice that not only is our functionality still working and we're getting the updated state of our to-dos, but we should also be able to update them in the backend and see those changes live happen on the device. All right, and here we go. So now we should be able to create a new to-do, and we are now observing. Right, so now if I save this, it's going to trigger a creation event, and then we should be able to get to the to-dos, and it should show up right here. So now we are observing, and we see that happen. And also, if we open up Chrome and if we do the update, all right, we get our page back. It has all the latest data. We go ahead and select this, and we are now observing, and I turn this to is complete, and I save that to-do. Bam! Look at that! Look at that! Look at that! That's freaking awesome! You missed it? Let me show you it again. Okay, here we go. So is complete. 3, 2, 1. Watch it. It's right here. Watch it right here. Completely separated device. Watch it right here. Save it. Save it. Ooh! Ooh! Look at that. Man, that's so awesome. That's so awesome. Now, the last thing I want to show you is on an Android device, but I got to find my Android device. All right, so I got my Android device, and what I want to show you is, okay, so I have it selected here. I'm going to stop running on the iOS simulator, and I have my Android device selected, and if we F5 it out, it's going to start building on this device. So it takes about a minute or so. But I want to show you that it actually works on Android too, and that we're syncing data between two different devices. All right, it looks like the APK just finished building, so that means that it should be moving over to my device any second and running on, okay, there it goes. So as you can see, this is my real device. This is my real Android device, a test device. And it looks like it's loading, oh man. Okay, let's get that out the way. This is the program I used to show it. But as you can see, bam, look at that. All the data that we've done up until now is up here. So let's go ahead, and what I'll do is I'll open up our to-do app over here on iOS, and let me go ahead and create a new one. And we're going to go ahead and say from Android, like this. So then we do save, it closes, we see it right there, bam, bam, see it right here, right here. Isn't that so cool? So that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I thought this was really cool. Like the first time that I actually got this all working to be able to run apps on both iOS and Android, have a backend that supports both iOS and Android, right? I thought that this was extremely powerful, and we are now in the field of actually building real, what I would actually consider to be like real apps, right? Because now you could take all of these concepts that you've learned so far in regards to like, you know, being able to save something, be able to watch for events, being able to update something, and have that be real data that a user can enter in and interact with. That's super powerful. So that's going to be it for today. We're actually going to take this a step further in our next video, where we're going to build out authentication, because right now anybody that downloads this app is going to have the same to-do list, and what we want to make it do is actually have user profiles. So we're going to actually be showing, I'm going to be showing you how to, you know, sign in, sign up, and things like that, and it's actually relatively easy to get going. So that's it for today. Thank you for your time. If you liked the video, if you learned something new, leave this video a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to be coming with that Amplify heat, boy. And then, last but certainly not least, make sure you go out there and you keep coding passionately.